loyalty,
duty,
respect,
selfless service, honor,
integrity,
and personal courage.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Staff Sergeant Noda with the United States Army National Guard. We're down here right now in beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana at the Edge Media Studios. I'm joined by my friends, Staff Sergeant Greg Johnson, Sergeant First Class Joshua Stevens, and Medal of Honor recipient, Sergeant First Class Sammy L. Davis. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning, this beautiful Thursday.
What's going on?
Sergeant First Class Davis, welcome from Freedom, Indiana. How was your drive over here?
Uneventful.
Uneventful.
That's good. That's always good. Those are good things.
That's very good.
We are so glad you're able to join us in the show. Thank you so much, sir, for your service to our country, our community. I know I speak for all of us. I don't think we've ever met a Medal of Honor recipient before. It was truly amazing to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on our show. We do have a few questions, though, for you. So you're from Indiana now, Freedom, Indiana, right?
Yes, sir.
What was it like moving to Indiana from California?
Well, in California, during the summer, I had worked up in the big trees as a logger.
Yeah.
And as a very young man, I was given a chainsaw and climbing to the top of 200-foot sequoias and breaking them down in 30-foot sections.
Goodness.
So I had worked very hard all summer, and I came home on a Friday night, and Dad said, "Son, quit your job. We're leaving to go back to Indiana." Wow. So that Sunday, which was the next day, we got in the car and drove to Indiana.
Wow. So your family was originally from Indiana then?
Illinois, Indiana.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Awesome.
That's probably quite a culture shock going from California in the '60s to,
Yes, sir.
to rural
Wow.
Indiana.
Indeed it was. Indeed it was.
So how did you decide in high school that you wanted to join the military?
Well, I always knew that I was going to join the military simply because all the males in my family had served in the military since Civil War.
Wow.
Okay. And everybody talked about it, grandpas, great-grandpas, dad, brothers, and I knew it was when it came my turn, I was going to join. So, there were 5 of us, Mooresville High School, where I went to high school, or I graduated from high school, and we decided that we were going to go down and join the Marine Corps. Well, we still had about 3 weeks of school left, and we took off a little early from school.
Oh, of course.
And we took off, went to the recruiting station, and we stood in line in the Marine Corps line because there were a lot of people joining that time period. And we stood in line for like an hour and a half. All of us had jobs that we had to go to that evening. It was Friday evening. And we stood there in that line, and it was not hardly moving at all. And the Army line, which was right next to us, they were just continually moving.
Efficiency.
Well, we looked at our watches, and we looked at each other, and we just kind of stepped over in the other line. So all 5 of us joined the Army instead of the Marine Corps. And it worked wonderfully.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're glad to have you.
We joined on the buddy plan, and we got to see each other again, but we were never stationed with each other.
Yeah.
The whole 3 years that all of us were in together. Now we got to see each other, but not in the military. you
Right.
know.
Oh, my goodness.
It was amazing.
That is.
I thought I was doing that's fine. I actually have a couple questions too. You kind of already explained it about the recruiting process. Talking about your family being all the way back to the Civil War.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to kind of go off base on this one. Because you wanted to join in the '60s, what were some of the other attitudes besides? I mean, did all of your friends all on base wanted to go, or was it a different? I know it was a different time. So,
I mean, on base in the military or
no, I
high
mean
school?
high school.
High school? No, of course there were some that did not believe the military was the proper thing to do.
Right. Okay.
But in Mooresville, that was a very small percent of the
Yeah,
population.
right. Okay.
The majority of us were very patriotic and wanted to stand up for our country. So we did what was right.
Where was the recruiting station at?
In Indianapolis is where we came. And
Wow, okay.
At the moment, that's been 50 some odd years ago. I don't remember the address.
just trying to imagine how the process was back then, because I know
Well,
our process now is a little more complicated.
Yes.
So
There was a local recruiting station. I think there was 2 guys there in Mooresville, and they said, okay, if you guys want to join, you got to go. So
Right.
that's where we went. Was they
Indy?
said downtown? It wasn't really downtown Indy, but that's where the big recruiting station was. So.
Sure.
Wow.
But they couldn't get us in.
Okay.
Really?
This was in first week of May.
Okay.
And they could not get us in until September
Oh,
because
wow.
all the basic training stations were full. So they said,
Wow.
okay. So I went in on September 28th, 1966.
Wow.
That's very cool. So what was your experience in basic training? Where did you go to basic training at?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Fort Jackson, South
B6
Carolina.
Be
Oh, my
6'2",
goodness.
best on the hill, sir.
Cool. What was your experience like in basic combat training in the 60s?
It was very awakening.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Let's see, my drill sergeant, Francisco Quinones. Wow, that's been a while.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Absolutely.
He was an impressive man. Impressive man. He got in our faces just about with every breath. That was his job. And I thought he hated me. We all thought he hated us all through basic training.
Right.
The day of graduation, Sergeant Francisco Quinones sent a message saying, Sergeant or Private Davis then, he said, Private Davis, I want you in my room. Well, I'd never really been to the sergeant's room, and I thought, uh-oh.
Oh boy.
So I knocked on the door, and he was sitting on the bed on his little bunk, and he had a bottle of whiskey in his hand. And he said, sit down, Private. Care for a drink? And I thought,
What?
this is part of the
It's a
test.
trick.
What?
This is a trick.
You do not drink it
believe
in the
this.
barracks. I said, no, thank you, Sergeant. And he kind of got a smirk on his face and says, no, really, do you want a drink? And I thought, well, okay.
A little bit.
So he handed me the bottle, and I took a hit off of it. He said, the reason why I called you in, he said, now I had been all that summer before I graduated out of high school. I went to work in the oil field, and I was working 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, working really hard because I only had a short period of time to make all this fantastic money in the oil field. I think I was making like $1.25 an hour.
Oh.
I mean, that was I was making more than my daddy was.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So I was working really, really hard. So I was in better shape than I believe all the rest of the kids in basic training because I had been pulling the pipe.
Right.
Is extremely physical
Right.
work. So I was in really good I could run, I could do everything. And the Sergeant Quinones said, well, the reason why I was so hard on you because I realized early on that you had more capabilities than most of the troops, and I just wanted you to know how good you could be.
Wow.
Wow.
And I go, whoa. So he handed me the bottle. I had another hit, and we sat there probably about 45 minutes talking about this, talking about that. And he said, you're going to make a good soldier. Keep in contact with me. When I received the Medal of Honor, Sergeant Francisco Quinones was one of the people that I asked the White House to bring to my Medal of Honor presentation.
That's so cool.
That's crazy.
It was awesome.
That's
It was indeed awesome.
that's really neat.
And boy, was he right when he said,
Oh my God, yes.
you're going to
You're
be a
gonna-
good soldier one day.
Yeah.
He couldn't have been more right.
Well, he believed in me.
yeah, absolutely. And that's important.
It is very
that's neat.
important on you.
So can you talk to us about what MOS you held while you were in the Army?
Artillery. I wanted to go in artillery because that's what my dad and
was family.
that's what everybody had
Okay.
always been in was artillery. So that's why I volunteered to go into the artillery.
So you got to pick your
Yes,
job
sir.
at that time also.
wow.
Yes,
That's
sir.
awesome. Yeah, I truthfully wasn't sure back in the 60s if you were able to choose your MOS like you
certainly.
can now. So that's interesting that you got to do what you want to do and follow the
It
family
worked well.
heritage. Yeah, sounds like it.
Was it like a 777? Like what was the artillery frames back then?
Frames.
Sorry, what was the artillery?
The gun.
The gun, yes, the gun.
105 split trail.
Oh my gosh,
What
yeah.
I was on.
Really?
Extremely air mobile, and we moved constantly. It was wonderful.
That's insane.
That's so cool.
Artillery.
And it fired beehive. Do y'all know what beehive is?
We don't. What is a
don't.
beehive?
A beehive is a flechette round. What it shoots is little arrows. made out of
gosh.
spring steel.
That's
got four-
terrifying.
four
That is
little-
terrifying.
There's, I believe, 1,800 in each round. And you set it on muzzle action, the 105 round on muzzle action. And now you can only, according to the Geneva Convention, you can only fire the beehive when you are in imminent danger of being overrun.
Understand?
In Vietnam,
You're always
unfortunately,
Right.
we were faced with that way too often. The night that I earned the medal, there were 42 of us artillerymen and 1,500 of the enemy. It was a reinforced heavy weapons battalion that attacked us, and they were attacking us 150 to 200 at a time. So they would come running at us, and we felt
Yeah, that was
I
imminent
understand.
danger.
That's
that we were
insane.
definitely in imminent danger. Beehive works extremely well.
I would say that's the textbook definition of
Yeah,
imminent danger.
Wow. So once you got out of basic training, what was the time period between the time you got out to the time you went to Vietnam? How long was that?
Well, I went from basic training directly into AIT, which was Fort Sill, Oklahoma Artillery.
Right.
And from Fort Sill, Oklahoma, I got to come home for 30 days, and then I went to Vietnam.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So what was your experience like right when you got to Vietnam, like culture shock wise? What was that like for you?
The night that I arrived in Vietnam is the night that they blew up the Long Binh ammunition dump, which was at the time the largest ammunition dump in the world.
Wow.
And the enemy came in and blew it up. The 90th replacement was right across the road from the ammunition dump.
Right.
So here we just arrived there late that afternoon, and at like 2:00 in the morning, man, everything started going up. Well, this is just like we'd seen in the movies. You know, we had 155 rounds landing in our compound there at the 9th replacement.
Wow.
They weren't going off, they were unfused. But here was all this, I mean, unbelievable. We're all standing there,
Right.
young, dumb troops, you know, we're just standing there looking at all this happen. Wow, man, this is really cool. Wow, do you see that? Wow, look at that.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't until a few hours later that we discovered that, well, this was not the way it usually was
Right.
every night. It's just they blew up the Long Binh ammunition dump.
Wow.
Well, my original orders had been to the 23rd Artillery up on the DMZ, and they took 100 of us that was at the replacement unit and assigned us to the ammunition dump because everybody, I won't say everybody, but most of the people were wounded and
Right.
not capable to continue on, so we were the replacement. So I was there for about 43 days, if I remember right. And then they sent me after they got squared away, then they sent me to the 9th Infantry Division down the Delta. And when we got the orders for the 9th Infantry Division down the Delta, everybody, all the old guys that had been in country for a while said, "Oh, that's cool, man. Nothing ever happens down in the Delta."
yeah, nothing. You'll be
So
fine.
I got sent to the 2nd and 4th Artillery at Tan True, actually.
Right.
Tan True, Vietnam.
Wow.
That's insane.
Where nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I can't believe it was 30 days between, completing basic combat training and AIT to you're in country.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
So that doesn't happen anymore.
I mean, yeah, because you have, pre-mobilization, you have all this buildup, you have notification X amount of months out. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen like that.
Right.
There's so much time.
Yeah, I've been through two of those for deployments, and the amount of time it takes to sit through classes and stuff.
Oh my
it's-
gosh.
it's you have to though
You have to
because
now.
of all the stuff that you have
Certainly.
to get
30
checked off
days.
on stuff.
That's insane.
But it was a different time.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What was your day-to-day like leading up to the battle that ultimately awarded you the Medal of Honor? What was your day-to-day like in Vietnam?
Day to day,
Day-to-day, yes.
well, it depends upon the day. Some days it was peaceful and quiet and ho-hum and, do. And some days it was, and you never know. It changed from moment to moment at times, so you just always had to be prepared.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You always had to be prepared for whatever could happen. And that was our sergeant's job to ensure that we had that ability.
Yeah, now, what was your rank around this time?
I was still private.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness. That's insane.
So if you don't mind, could you please walk us through the battle on November 18th, 1967? Describe to everyone listening or watching what that day was like for you, and just kind of go through everything that happened.
Well, we had 4 105 howitzers that were sent on an op to help the 2nd to 60th and the 5th to the 60th infantry go on a big push. They knew that all these NVA had come down around through Laos and had came in through the southernmost portion of Vietnam. This was going to be the buildup for what would happen shortly in Saigon, Tet of 68, or
Tet Offensive.
the big Tet Offensive.
Right.
This was in 67. And they knew that this was something really big was about to happen, so that's why they put us down there. Well, the enemy knew that if they were going to seriously mess with the infantry, they had to take the artillery out first.
Right. Yep.
So at 2 o'clock in the morning, they overran us.
Wow.
There were 1,500 of them across. We were set up on the river, and they started coming across the river. 150 to 200 at a time would come running at us. They'd come down through the river. The river at the deepest part, the deepest part, it was 8 foot, but that was only just a short, just about as wide as this room, about 8 or 12 foot,
Right.
was really deep. Most of it was chest high on the enemy. So here they'd come, we could see them coming, hit the river. They'd come running across as much as they can, and then just before they got to our bank is where that deep spot was, and they'd disappear, and then they would all of a sudden come back up spluttering, and then come up the bank and do their job. Well, that's where I did my job as an artilleryman until I ran out of beehive rounds. I
Right.
actually fired all the rounds that I had, HE, white phosphorus, you name it, marking.
Right.
I fired everything. And when I ran out of rounds to fire for the howitzer, then I started the M16. I had about 180 rounds for my M16, and I did my job.
Right.
And when I ran out of that, then I started grabbing them by the throat. So,
Wow.
well, you got to keep going. You know, if you're
Right.
still alive. And I was shot 30 times.
Oh my God.
So,
Jeez.
well, I got hit by beehive because the guys there was a gun behind me, and they thought we were all dead because the enemy hit my howitzer and blew it all up, and I wasn't dead yet. I was laying half in and half out of my foxhole, and that's why Forrest got shot. Where?
It's
Right in the
buttocks.
rear.
In the
Right in the
buttocks.
rear.
Because I was laying half in and half out.
Right.
But I had my flak jacket on. So from the mid thigh up to my 4th lumbar vertebra, I had 30 of those beehive in my back that went through. There was only 7 left in me. The rest passed through. I remember that coming morning when it got daylight, and by then everything was done. And I got shot with an AK-47 in the right thigh, and I looked down at that, and I could see the big hole, and I thought, well, that's why that hurts. Well, why do I hurt up here?
Right.
You know, why all I could see was little X's,
Right.
just little
From
bitty
the
from
arrows.
the fins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I'd never even thought about getting hit by our own beehive. And here's all these little X's, and you know, I was bleeding, you know, not a whole lot about them little holes. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, this is really weird. Well, it wasn't until, I passed out, and I woke up in the hospital, and that's when they showed me the pile of beehive that they had taken out. I still have those beehive, by the way.
Wow.
Wow.
And that's when they explained to me that, well, the gun behind you, when they seen your gun get hit, and they thought everyone was dead, which
Right.
it did not kill anyone. We were all wounded, but no one was killed.
Right.
But that's when they fired the beehive, because you don't because the enemy was in the process of trying to turn my howitzer around.
Oh my
To
God.
fire our
Wow.
guys, so that's why they fired the beehive over it.
Jeez.
So after that's just I'm still trying to register everything you just told me.
Process that.
That's an amazing
So-
story.
After you woke up in the hospital, how long before you went home and before they kind of notified you, hey, you could potentially be getting the Medal of Honor?
Well, it was Camp Zama, Japan, was where I woke up. And one of the first things I was on a lot of drugs.
Right.
One of the first things that I can remember them telling me that they were going to send me home and retire me from the Army.
Wow.
Well, I didn't want to retire from the Army. I didn't really want to go home because my last memory was my brothers
Right.
that was there. I mean, I wanted to go back and, well, where's all my brothers at? How they doing?
Right.
trying to find out information. Well, they didn't know anything. So I wanted to go back to my unit and find out what happened to my brothers. After I've been in there about 4 days, I think it was a colonel that came into my room, and he's the one that told me that I had been put in for the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I said, well, sir, oh, and he also told me that I was going to be retired from the military and sent home. And I said, well, sir, I don't want to be retired from the military, and I don't want to go home. I want to go back to Vietnam and be with my brothers. About 2 weeks prior to this event, I had met General William Childs Westmoreland.
Wow.
And he was the one that had just signed my Medal of Honor citation.
Right.
Wow.
And I told him, I said, will you tell, said, General Westy had given me a new pair of boots. Now, I could have had new boots on, but my boots, in Vietnam, you was always in the water, always in the mud.
Right.
And most of the guys' feet were just unbelievable with big sores, open sores that never healed because you're wet all the time. You can't heal.
Right.
Well, my feet were a little bit better shape than most of the other kids. And it's because my boots, I never turned mine in to get new boots. I still had my old boots on that had big holes in them, you know.
Yeah.
But the water drained out quicker.
Oh.
So that's, well, Westy came, stopped by the unit. We were out on an op, and, you know, the helicopter landed, and General William Childs Westmoreland stepped out. Of course, our captain,
Right.
you know, do this, do this, do this, do this.
Right.
And so when Westy, we were in a fire mission. Now, it was not, there was not enemy attacking us. The enemy was attacking the infantry, but it was like 6 miles away. And they said, well, when Westy comes to your gun, you quit firing. The other 3 guns will pick up the pace and just do whatever Westy wants.
Right.
So Westy came, we were line, when he come up to us, we, you know, fell in line, all 4 of us. And I was the last one that he talked to. Well, I could hear all the questions he was asking the other guys. And it was, you know, you getting your hot chow, you getting your letters from home, you know, all the general questions that you're supposed to ask.
Yeah.
So when he came to me and he looked me right in the eye and he looks at me, now we were dirty, muddy. I didn't have a shirt on. All I had was trousers and my boots. It was hot.
Yeah, it's super hot.
And he looked down at my feet, and then I realized that I remembered that my feet had, my shoes had holes in them, and I wiggled my toes, which he could see very plainly. And his eyes got real big, and he said, "Private, is that the only pair of boots you have?" Yes, that was the only pair of boots I had. So I said, "Yes, sir." And he turned to my captain. Well, my captain had on a brand new pair of Cochrane jump boots. Ooh. And Westy turned to me and he said, "Private, what size are your boots?" I said, "10W, sir." He turned to the captain and said, "Captain, what size are your boots?" And my captain, Dennis Shibley, said, "10W, sir." He said, "Take them boots off and give them to that boy." So that's how I met General Westmoreland.
Wow.
And we became lifelong friends after that.
Wow. That's
But
awesome.
when I woke up in the hospital and they told me that they were going to retire me and send me home, I said, "You call General William Childs Westmoreland. We're just like that. He just gave me a new pair of boots a couple
Oh
weeks
my
ago."
gosh.
Well, now I didn't know that I'd been put in for the Medal of Honor.
Right.
But when the colonel there in charge of the hospital in Camp Zama, Japan, he did his job. He contacted General Westmoreland, and when Westy got the information, he came to Japan. And he come, well, I think it was like the next day. And like I say, I was on some big drugs, so I don't really know. But it seemed like the next day, here come General Westmoreland walking in, and he said, "Well, son, what can I do for you?" And I said, "Well, sir, they're going to send me home, and I just want to go back and be with my brothers." And he said, "Well, I'll have to talk to the doctors, but we'll see what we can do." Well, as soon as I stabilized, they were going to send me back to, I think, 3rd Field in Saigon, 3rd Field Hospital. And as soon as I could walk, I could go back to my unit. So I got to go back to Vietnam, went to the hospital, and just a very short period of time, I got to go back to my unit.
Oh, wow.
I can remember my first sergeant when I come walking into the tent that was the orderly room. Well, I can't repeat exactly what he said.
Sure. Right.
But he said, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to do with you, so I guess I'll make you a cook." So that's how I got to be a cook in the Army. And it was basically because I couldn't do anything else for a while, but that only lasted a short period of time. And then we were always shorthanded. And then I said, well, I can go out on that gun. Well, I can go out on that gun. Well, I can go out. So that's how I got to go back out on the guns. It worked great.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Wow.
So I know you are we brought up Forrest Gump a second ago. You are the real Forrest Gump. What did you have to do with production? Did you have anything at all to do with the production of Forrest Gump, or?
No, sir, I did not.
Really?
No, sir.
I know they used your video, right?
They used the video.
Yeah.
When the president's putting the medal around my neck, that's the actual video that you see in the movie Forrest Gump is that they just put Tom's face over mine.
Did Tom call you or anything? Did the producers of the movie call you and be like,
They
hey?
told me they were going to do it.
And that was it.
That was it.
So
as,
rude.
as a Medal of Honor recipient, I am, what's the eminent domain, public domain?
Oh,
I'm one of those domain
Yeah.
things.
Right.
The government actually can control that video. And,
Yes.
Okay.
And the government said, oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
So,
I can't believe they didn't even let you know. Jeez.
the result is that Tom Friends and I are friends.
Really?
Yes, sir. And Gary Sinise and I are brothers.
Really?
Yes, sir.
That's amazing.
We visit each other.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. That's
neat.
Personal thing. That's my favorite movie of all time.
I mean, it's so cool
I've seen
to
it
be
no
here.
less than 100 times.
Well, there's so much of it that does have my life in it.
Really?
Yes, sir. They, took a little bit of truth and blew it all
Right.
apart.
Yeah.
But yes, sir, it's
loosely based.
It's loosely based on my life. Yes,
That's
sir.
so amazing that such an
That's so cool.
American
It's crazy.
classic
It is.
is based on someone sitting 2 feet away from me right now. Like I am, oh my gosh, my heart is beating.
That's so cool.
Oh my gosh.
So, Sergeant Davis, will you tell us what you've been up to since retiring? Did you start another career, or where's life taken you since you left the military?
Since I retired from the military, I have been a public speaker.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Normally, under normal conditions, my wife and I are on the road 200 plus days a year, traveling
Wow.
all
Oh my
over
God.
America, traveling and speaking, encouraging people to stand up for what you believe is right in your heart. Talk to a tremendous amount of schools, and of course, in the schools, I always promote the military and encourage our students to go down and talk to your local recruiters. And I do not push one specific Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Navy, whatever. I just want you to join what you think's right in your heart. And the amount of troops that come up to me in my travels all over the world and say, you talked to me when I was in the 9th grade, and encouraged me to join the military. And well, the one kid I'm thinking of, he was a colonel
Oh wow.
in Germany, and he said, "You're the reason why I'm here today."
Wow.
So it just makes you feel good.
Oh, yeah.
It makes your heart feel good.
That's so cool.
Well, you kind of answered it already, but I'm going to ask it. So, military service, what does it mean to you? And if there was a kid on the fence considering joining the military, what would you tell them?
I would encourage you to join the military, simply because of the knowledge that you gain in joining the military goes way beyond anything that I thought possible. When I was a senior in high school, I had no real idea of what the knowledge would bring of me being in the military. I mean, I took for granted that it was going to teach me how to fire a gun and
Right.
all that. But I have visited almost every country in the world
Wow.
at one time or another. I always thought that I was a poor kid because we didn't have much money. I mean, we always had a home, we always had food on the table, but because we didn't have money, I thought, well, wow, I'm just poor.
Right.
Well, going all over the world, I realized, yeah, we may not have had money, but we weren't poor.
Right.
Because we always had food on the table.
Right.
We always had a nice place to, warm in the winter and reasonably cool in the summer. And going to all these other countries, I got to realize how fortunate we are in this nation. Wow. And it made me appreciate what we have and made me want to stand up even taller for what we have in this country. Too many people that have never left America don't realize what we have here and don't realize how fortunate we are.
Yeah.
That's why I promote one of the reasons I promote the military, is because of the knowledge that it gives you and makes you appreciate what we have in this nation even more, which is protected by those that are in the military.
What an incredible
That's
story.
perfectly
It's so
put.
true, though.
Yeah.
It's so true. You know,
It is.
we take a lot of these freedoms for granted, but it's so true when you travel around the world and see really
It's
what
eye-opening.
it is. You know, many of us have traveled. I've been to Camp Zama, Japan, actually, so I've seen.
Cool.
Yeah, you've been around and you've been around. So we've
Yeah.
seen these other places, and you're absolutely right. There are so many freedoms.
Did you by chance meet Miss Mai?
I did not. Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh. There's so many things that are offered by our country, and it is absolutely incredible once you travel around and see how some other people live and some of the freedoms that we have been granted as Americans. And that is truly...
Those that have never traveled
Yeah.
take all these things for granted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not until you go see how the rest of the world live.
Puts it into perspective.
That's
Yes.
right. Definitely.
That is so amazing. Sergeant First Class Samuel Davis, I cannot thank you enough for coming 80 miles from Freedom, Indiana to come out here to visit us. Staff Sergeant Greg Johnson, Sergeant First Class Joshua Stevens. My name is Staff Sergeant Noto. We are the Not Your Average Joes. We appreciate everyone listening. Thank you so much for your time. Until next time, have a good rest of y'all's day.
One of the things I want everyone
Oh,
to
yeah.
remember, that no matter what you're faced with in life, you don't lose until you quit trying.
That's so amazing. You're so right.
It's perfect.
That's so good. Thank y'all again. Sergeant First Class Davis, I cannot thank you enough. Hua, thank you again for your service, sir. And thank you all for coming out here.
Thank you.